The grass above an old landfill can look completely ordinary. Rain sits on the leaves. Birds move through young native plants. A path crosses ground that once received a city's rubbish. Then a drilling machine arrives, and the land becomes a question again. In 2026, central government committed almost $500,000 to investigate Whanganui's former Balgownie Landfill. Whanganui District Council was contributing another $310,000. The useful idea is larger than one site. Closing a landfill stops new rubbish from arriving. It does not stop the old rubbish from changing underground. Balgownie began receiving waste in 1956. Most operations ended in 1995, while parts remained open until 2001. By then, nearly half a century of household, building, commercial and industrial waste had entered the ground. The site began before New Zealand's Resource Management Act of 1991 and before the standards expected of a modern landfill. Modern landfills are planned as containment systems. They can include carefully prepared bases, liners, drains, pipes, daily cover, gas collection, water monitoring, and records of the material accepted. Old town dumps often grew in a different way. A wet or low piece of land looked empty. Trucks filled it. Layers were covered, the surface became useful, and memory faded faster than the waste. Historical work at Balgownie describes a former swamp that was reclaimed after the Second World War and turned into a dump. It was unlined. People who knew the site recalled a period when many kinds of material could be left there with few controls. That history creates suspicion, not a final diagnosis. New Zealand uses a hazardous activities and industries list to mark land where earlier work may have caused contamination. Landfills are on that list. Being on the list does not prove that every piece of soil is dangerous. It says there is enough reason to ask better questions before people dig, build, subdivide, or change how the land is used. The difference matters. If every old industrial site were treated as clean, people and water could be exposed to hidden hazards. If every listed site were treated as poison beyond use, useful land could be abandoned without evidence. An investigation turns that uncertainty into a map. The map begins with 3 parts: a source, a pathway, and a receiver. The source might be a pocket of waste, contaminated soil, landfill gas, or liquid that has moved through rubbish. That liquid is called leachate. The pathway is how the material could travel. It may move through soil, groundwater, a drain, dust, vapor, floodwater, or a hole opened during construction. The receiver is what could be harmed. It may be a worker, a child, a nearby household, the Whanganui River, a wetland, plants, or animals. Risk becomes serious when those 3 parts connect. A substance can be hazardous, but deeply sealed away from people and water. The same substance can become urgent if erosion, flooding, a broken cap, or excavation creates a route to the surface. This is why Andrew Treep, the mayor of Whanganui, compared digging into the old landfill with putting a pin into a balloon. The picture is not a claim that one giant bubble sits below the grass. It explains a real landfill process. When food, paper, wood, and other organic material break down without much oxygen, they can create gases, including methane and carbon dioxide. Those gases look for a way out. Pressure can collect in some places. Gas can also move through loose ground or along buried surfaces. Water creates another route. Rain that enters waste can collect dissolved material and carry it as leachate. Old records for Balgownie describe drains that direct leachate towards the city's wastewater system. A cap over the waste helps reduce the amount of rain entering it. The cap is therefore not decoration. It is part of the landfill. A deep foundation, trench, pipe, or careless borehole can cut through that protection. It can expose waste, release gas, bring contaminated soil to the surface, or give water a new path. This does not mean the site can never be touched. It means the ground needs a plan before the bucket goes down. A detailed site investigation may use old aerial photographs, council files, interviews and maps to estimate where waste was placed. Specialists can then drill or sample selected locations. They may test soil, groundwater, surface water, leachate, and gas. Laboratory results show what is present and at what concentration. Location matters as much as the list of substances. A sample from one age cannot describe an entire landfill. Waste was placed in different decades, by different users, in different pits. One area may hold ordinary household refuse. Another may contain building material, ash, drums, or soil moved from somewhere else. That unevenness explains the cost of finding an answer. Investigators are not simply asking whether contamination exists. They are asking where it is, how far it extends, whether it is moving, who could meet it, and which future users are safe. The intended use changes the question. A sealed storage yard, a walking reserve, a wetland, a playground, and a group of homes do not expose people to soil in the same way. A child playing in a garden may touch soil often. A worker on a paved site may rarely touch it at all. Plant roots, flood water, underground pipes, and building foundations create different pathways. Safe land use is therefore not one universal label. It is a match between the condition of the land and what people want to do there. New Zealand's national soil rules become important when land with a risky history is subdivided, disturbed, or moved into another use. Sampling must control dust and exposure, and the soil must be made resistant to erosion again after the work. Larger changes may need consent and expert evidence. The investigation itself is not the cleanup. The National Contaminated Sites and Vulnerable Landfills Fund separates the work into phases. A detailed investigation finds the nature and extent of contamination and risk. Remedial planning compares ways to manage it. Remediation carries out the chosen work. The fund has $20 million available each year while its money lasts. It usually pays half of an eligible project's cost, although a greater share may be considered in some cases. That shared funding recognizes a difficult truth. The people who created a legacy site may be gone. The council that owns or regulates it still has to protect the community around it. Ratepayers did not personally place every old drum in the ground, but the ground now sits inside their city. Remediation does not always mean digging out every piece of waste. Complete removal can be extremely expensive and can create new risks as material is lifted, carried through streets, and placed somewhere else. Depending on the evidence, a safer plan may strengthen the cap, collect gas, improve drains, remove only the worst material, restrict building, monitor water, or keep the site in a low disturbance use. Balgownie already shows how an old waste site can hold more than one future. Part of the area is a reserve with native planting and a walkway. Nearby land has industrial uses. The wider landscape also has wetland and flood management value. Those uses do not erase the dump. They sit above and beside it. If this story changes how you see a green space, share it with someone who thinks a closed landfill is simply empty land. The drilling at Balgownie is not proof that disaster is waiting underground. It is evidence that uncertainty is being taken seriously. Grass can hide the shape of an old decision. A cap can control it. Monitoring can watch it. A careful plan can make room for a useful future, but the land keeps the memory, even after the last rubbish truck has gone.